Let's talk about the geopolitical storm that's brewing in the Arctic. At the very center of it is a pretty shocking demand that's pitting the United States against some of its closest allies. It's a story that involves massive tariffs, national security, and one of the most strategic places on the entire planet, Greenland.
So how did this all kick off? Well, it all started on January 17, 2026. A single, pretty surprising announcement from the White House ended up igniting a diplomatic firestorm that just rippled across the Atlantic. So former President Donald Trump gets on his Truth Social platform and drops this bombshell. He declared his intention to force the sale of Greenland, which, as you know, is this vast, autonomous territory of Denmark. And the official reason given? U.S. national security. The administration went so far as to call Danish control unacceptable for protecting North America. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just talk. It came with a very serious economic threat. The administration started prepping tariffs against these 8 key European nations, all of whom had publicly backed Denmark's refusal to sell. The message was crystal clear: get in line or get ready to face the consequences. The plan was basically a 2-step squeeze to apply pressure. It would kick off with a 10% tariff. But, and this is a big but, if no deal was reached, that tariff would jump to a heavy-hitting 25% by the summer. That's some serious economic muscle being flexed to try and force a deal on Greenland's future.
Okay, so all of this just begs a massive question, right? Why Greenland? What is it about this huge, ice-covered island that's suddenly at the heart of this intense international showdown?
And the answer, really, is simple. It's all about location, location, location. You see, Greenland's strategic position, sitting right between North America and Europe, makes it one of the most critical pieces of real estate in the world when it comes to military and strategic planning.
I mean, the U.S. is already there in a big way. They have the massive Thule Air Base, which is absolutely essential for their missile warning systems. From Greenland, you can watch over key shipping and submarine routes. And of course, it provides the perfect vantage point for keeping an eye on Russian military movements in the Arctic.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The administration's whole argument hinges on this concept they're calling the Golden Dome, a super powerful next-generation missile defense shield for all of North America. The people who support this argue that to build, control, and upgrade this shield without any restrictions, the U.S. needs total sovereignty over Greenland, not just a lease for one airbase.
And you have to remember, none of this is happening in a vacuum. As the Arctic ice melts, new shipping lanes and valuable resources are opening up. And this is attracting intense interest not just from the U.S., but from Russia, a rising China, and European powers, basically turning the whole region into a new chessboard for global competition. So, as you can probably guess, the reaction from Europe, from Denmark, and especially from the people of Greenland themselves was, well, swift, and it was loud, and it was unambiguous. Copenhagen's response was, to put it mildly, a hard no. Backed by Greenland's own government, Danish officials just flat-out rejected the idea. They made it clear that Greenland's sovereignty is not a commodity. It's not something you can just buy and sell. For them, this was a huge deal, a fundamental issue of international law and a people's right to decide for themselves. So really, this is the core of the disagreement right here. On one side, you have the U.S. saying, look, this is a non-negotiable for our national security. And on the other, you have Europe saying, wait a minute, security is what NATO is for. You don't threaten an ally. That actually undermines the security you're talking about. It's a fundamental clash.
And this wasn't just stuffy diplomatic statements either. We're talking about people on the ground. Thousands marched in the streets of Copenhagen and Nuuk, waving Danish and Greenlandic flags. At the same time, Denmark and its NATO allies actually boosted their military presence in the region. Now, officially, it was to monitor Russia, but it was also sending a pretty clear message to Washington. We're serious about defending the status quo here.
So, this brings us to the real-world consequences. I mean, what are the actual stakes? What would really happen if these threats turned into reality and the tariffs were actually imposed?
Well, economically, the fallout would be massive, and it would be fast. We are talking about billions of dollars in transatlantic trade getting thrown into chaos. For consumers, say here in the U.S., this would mean higher prices on all kinds of things, from European cars to food. And you can absolutely bet that Europe would fire back with retaliatory tariffs of its own.
But honestly, as bad as the economics are, the political damage, that could be way, way worse. Using economic force to demand territory from a treaty ally, that's just unprecedented. And it strikes right at the heart of the trust that holds the entire NATO alliance together.
See, this isn't happening in a bubble. It just pours gasoline on all these other fires that are already burning over trade and climate policy. It sets a really dangerous precedent for how countries deal with each other. And you know what? It even raises some really serious legal questions right here at home in the US about whether a president even has the authority to do something like this.
So, when you zoom out a little bit, you start to see that this isn't just about one island, right? This whole mess tells us something much bigger about our changing world, and especially about what's happening up in the Arctic.
And that's the bottom line, really. The Greenland dispute? It's not some random event. It's a huge, flashing sign that the Arctic is no longer this frozen, far-off, forgotten frontier. Nope, it has become the new stage for great power competition, and the struggles over its resources, its routes, and its strategic territory, they are only just getting started.
And so, this all leaves us with one massive, looming question for the future. As climate change keeps transforming the region, are the nations with a stake up there going to find a way to cooperate for security and prosperity? Or is this fight over Greenland just the opening shot in a new kind of Cold War, one fought on the icy roof of the world?